What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Tinted Visors podcast, the TVP, bringing you episode 14. Caden is on your left, Kenny is on your right. Today we have, as always, we got some news for you guys. Then we're going to go through the World Junior Championships recap, just talk about, the storylines that sort of came out of that tournament. And then we're going to go into predicting some UFA, RFA signings, either, extensions throughout the year or during the offseason. But with that, let's get it going.
But I don't be getting my flowers. You really thought she would be sweet.
Before we get into all that, like always, we're going to do the card of the day. I'll start it off today in light of the tournament that passed a couple weeks ago. We've got the Taylor Radish Team Canada patch auto, number to 199. Super clean card. Obviously this is one of the more, toned down versions or years of the set. Usually they have more, Canada colors, red, white, gold, but this year's a little more neutral, but, still a great card. Big fan of Taylor Radish. Sucks to see him go when they traded him from Tampa to Chicago a couple years ago, but he's thriving in Chicago. He gets to play with guys like Connor Bedard. Followed him his whole career. So, really excited to see what he does in his career, and I'm hoping to build onto the collection that I have of his cards.
Yeah, it's a sweet card. The Team Canada sets are awesome. Some nasty patch autos you can get, and especially after they make the NHL, the prices tend to go down a bit. You can get some pretty cool players for cheap. So my card of the day, in light of him scoring against the Toronto Maple Leafs last night, time of the recording, we have a Bo Horvat Future Watch auto, numbered to 999. Bought this at a card show, had to trade a Mitch Marner autograph and cash for this. It's always worth it when you're trading for a PC card. One of my favorite Bo Horvat cards that I have, the classic Future Watch auto. Super happy to have it in my collection and love watching him play every night.
Super clean card. I was there when you got it, and obviously you were happy to get it, but I was happy for you. It's a pretty rare card too. A couple years ago, or a long time ago now, that his rookie class was, and very clean card.
All right, so moving on to our recaps, Kenny. Biggest headline of the week so far: William Nylander getting the 8-year extension. What are your initial thoughts on this signing?
He got paid. Good on him, good on his agent. He got the money, he secured the bag. Proved both of us wrong. We both thought he wasn't going to re-sign with the team. We just didn't think the logistics would work out for both sides. But, he got the full 8 years. He got a full no-move clause, which is pretty crazy. And $11.5 million that makes him the second highest paid player on the team. It's a huge signing. Obviously, Leafs fans are really happy. Just looking at it, it's tough. Like we said earlier, it's 60% of your cap tied up in 5 players. Where's the depth gonna come from if you have no money to pay those guys? You have money tied up in Samsonov. He's not doing too well. I don't. It's tough to say. I don't think it's gonna work. Obviously people just think that's biased, but I don't know. What do you think?
It's a great signing. Leaf fans should be very happy with this. But yeah, the cap, very big concern. We'll have to wait and see how much the cap goes up next year. But as of right now, he is locked up. I don't think he is an $11.5 million player. I see him being a 90-plus point guy. I think he'll crack 100 this year, but I think he's having a career year. The contract year's talked about a bit. I think he's a victim of that. And I think the Leafs are a victim of that, signing him. 11.5. Leaf fans should be happy they locked him up, but don't be expecting $11.5 million production out of him for his career.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens with Marner next year, and then Tavares as well. Obviously Tavares, I think, will take less than what he's making right now, but Marner is going to demand more, and maybe up near Matthews' numbers. I think he's more important to them than Nylander is, so I do think he'll get more than that 11.5. But we'll see. And on top of that, we're going to speak about free agents later, but Nylander's contract kind of just dictates, kind of just sets the bar for what these other guys are going to be searching for in the offseason.
All right, so just moving on. The story at the start of the season was the Boston Bruins still being atop of the league. But now there's a new king at the top, Kenny. It is the Winnipeg Jets. How are they doing this?
Beats me. I have no idea. But what a season. Getting production, obviously Hellebuck's playing out of his mind right now. They don't really have many, just like star players, and no one going 1.3, 1.4 points per game. A couple guys are points per game, but the production's coming from everywhere. All 4 lines, all 3 defensive pairs. It's working out. I don't know what's going on with them. Kyle Connor was out for a bit, so I thought they'd slow down a little bit. But they've taken over first in the league as of this recording. They took it over from the Canucks, so I'll let you touch on them for a bit. But what a season they're having. For my top 3 MVPs for them would be Hellebuck as 1, Scheifele, and then Morrissey. All three guys are really carrying their weight. Obviously, getting paid the big bucks, so they need to, and they're delivering. And Kyle Connor's gonna come back. He's gonna. I'm not sure if he is back already, but he's gonna come back and he's gonna, light it up again. And we've talked about it time and time again. Velarde, Iafallo, what a trade, both producing. The Jets, they're a serious team this year.
It's funny you mentioned the top 3 MVPs for the Jets being Hellebuck, Scheifele, and Morrissey. That's your number 1 center, that's your starting goalie, and that's your number 1 D. Hellebuck this year has really propelled the Jets to another level. Josh Morrissey continuing to prove he's the number 1 D-man in this league. And Mark Scheifele, just great production out of your top guys. It's really what you like to see. And if someone were to tell me that the Jets would be first in the league mid-January this season, would have called you crazy. Would have called you crazier if they told me that the Vancouver Canucks would be second in the league. They're smashing expectations. And I can speak for Canucks fans. Everyone's kind of waiting for that losing skid to happen and us to kind of come back down to earth. But it's not happening. Recently, the Lotto line was put back together, which consists of Elias Pettersson, Brock Besser, and JT Miller, and they're on fire. They are lighting it up. Elias Pettersson specifically is absolutely going crazy right now. You love to see it. They're on the longest road trip of the season so far. Hopefully they can carry that momentum through the road trip and back home and continue this amazing season.
Exactly. Similar to the Jets, they have a very good goalie, and they have a lot of depth production as well. P.S. Suter's scoring, Hoaglander's scoring, Ronick's doing really well. A lot of guys down in the third, fourth lines, they're producing. And, right now, both those teams, number 1, number 2 in the standings, they look like they'll finish number 1 and 2.
Winnipeg Jets and the Vancouver Canucks, both of them. Pretenders or contenders? What do you think?
Like you said, fans are waiting for that losing streak to start, and, that would, signify them being pretenders, but I haven't seen any glimpses of that from either team so far, so I do think as of right now, they are contenders. Nowhere have we really seen 2 or 3, 4 games where they've really, let the ball drop. They've just been consistent time and time again, and yeah, I think contenders.
We talked about the big signing. Let's talk about the blockbuster trade that just went down. Cutter Gauthier is an Anaheim Duck, traded for Jamie Drysdale and a 2nd-round pick. Kenny, what do you think of the whole transaction?
Yeah, it's funny you bring up, the signing and the trade. Probably first kept secret, the William Nylander extension, and then probably the best kept secret, in trade history. No one saw this coming. No one knew about, all the turmoil going on between him and the organization. Good on the Flyers, good on all the other GMs and all the other owners for keeping their mouths shut and sort of letting this sort of fly under the radar until the time was right. So I think, as of that went, well in the process. But, I've voiced my opinion on, players sort of dictating where they want to go and sort of acting like they've earned the right to sort of decide what they want in their career. And, nothing to take away from how good of a player he was. He arguably the MVP of the tournament. Obviously, it went to Lekari-Maki, and good tournament for him as well. But, 12 points in 7 games for U.S., took home the gold. He's having a really good season with Boston College right now. He's a very good player and a very good prospect. And I don't think that he deserves the hate to the extent that he's getting right now. Obviously, a lot of people are sending death threats, sending all this kind of stuff that he doesn't deserve. Obviously, no one deserves that kind of stuff. But it's just kind of weird, to say, not give much detail at all why you don't want to be there, and then sort of just force their hand. I think both sides, I guess, handled it well until it sort of broke out. And then I think the Flyers were a little salty. I think a lot of people in the organization kind of just bashed the kid as he went out. And I mean, I guess to each their own. If that's how they want to deal with it, then good on them. But I thought it was a little bit childish on the Flyers' part. Maybe you think differently, I don't know. But it's an interesting story. It really is, and we'll see how it plays out when he comes to Philly the next time.
Right. It's a very interesting story, and it's pretty crazy how there hasn't been a peep about this. And this has been going on for months now. And Danny Briere came out and talked about it, how on draft night, after Gauthier was drafted, he came up and said, I want to be a Flyer, I want to play in this jersey. And then only a few months later, he says he doesn't want to be a Flyer, doesn't want to put that jersey on, and wouldn't really give any reason why, or we're not being told why. And Briere kind of talked about he refused to meet with them. They even had guys fly out to Sweden for the World Juniors to kind of just try and talk to him one last time. Nothing from Gauthier's side. Don't know the full story. Gauthier can be saying one thing, the Flyers can be saying another. It's all really unfortunate. I hope he still pans out as a player, but you can bet on him being booed when he comes back to Philly for the first time.
Yeah, and there are a couple reports just saying that they didn't want to sign him at the end of last season just with cap difficulties, and he kind of took that personally. And then That's when he decided he didn't want to play for them. But that's fine to be mad about it. But then when you go back, he goes back to Boston College, has a great year, ends up winning gold. At that point, he kind of realized, oh, maybe this is a blessing in disguise that I didn't get to play in the NHL this year. I got to play with the guys I grew up with, got to win gold for my country. At that point, maybe he should sort of change his mind. At least if I were in his shoes, that's probably how I would see it. Obviously, I'd never be in his position, but I think if he was just more of a half glass full kind of person, I think you could see the positives that came out of this season for him. And I think he could have been a really good star in Philadelphia. But let's look at the flip side. Jamie Drysdale, obviously I just feel kind of bad for him. He was just sort of getting his groove in Anaheim, obviously had a lot of injuries, and he doesn't sort of deserve to have this comparison with Cutter for the rest of his career, but I feel like that's what's going to happen. Everyone's always going to talk about this trade every time, Philly goes to Anaheim or Anaheim goes to Philly, and I think he doesn't deserve that. He's a great player on his own, and he doesn't really need to be, attached to a guy like Cutter Gauthier, which they have pretty much no relation other than the trade.
From the Flyers' point of view, I think this is a great move. You had a kid who did not want to play for you, and you made something out of nothing, really. Should have got a lot less in a trade, but coming off that World Junior performance, I think getting Jamie Drysdale and a second for Cutter Gauthier, you're turning nothing into something. That's a big Flyers win. You get a guy who wants to play for you. You get a very solid right-hand shot who can stay, if he can stay healthy, he is going to be elite, and Jamie Drysdale is going to be very good. So like you said, I don't think he deserves, the comparison to Cutter Gauthier and kind of being sucked into the whole drama. But I am super excited to watch Jamie Drysdale develop as a Flyer. I hope he can stay healthy. But to me, this is a very big win for the Flyers.
I think it's a big win for the Flyers. I think it's a big win for the Ducks, too. I mean, obviously he's a great player, Jamie Drysdale is. But, looking at their pipeline, they have a guy like Mintyukov. They have a guy like Tristan Luneau, who obviously got injured. But they also have a guy like Olen Zellweger. They have a lot of very good young defensemen. Pile that with a couple maybe, veteran signings. They have a very good core for the next 5-10 years. So, as good as he is, Jamie Drysdale becomes expendable in that case, and they flip him for a very good forward prospect who can join the likes of Troy Terry, Leo Carlsson, and Trevor Zegras for years to come.
Yeah, really took that surplus of defensive prospects, turned it into a very elite and promising forward. I think it's going to be a win-win for both teams here as we look at this trade in the following years to come.
Last one on the news list, we've got the Connor Bedard injury. Elephant in the room. Obviously, he's been out past couple of days, and he's going to be out for the next 6 to 8 weeks with a broken jaw. Unfortunate hit. If you think it's 30, you gotta look at it again, because it is a clean hit. He's just reaching for the puck, which is just unfortunate, and he catches it in the jaw. And very unfortunate for the kid. Great start to the season so far. He was gonna probably be point per game for the whole season, but hopefully he can come back in March and tear it up again. On the only sort of bright side in this sort of situation is that the Calder race is wide open now. Marco Rossi can take advantage here. A guy like Adam Fantilli, Logan Cooley, all these guys now have this huge opportunity to bring home the Rookie of the Year.
Really tough spot for Connor Bedard. The first overall pick from 2023, like you said, broken jaw. Unfortunate play, vulnerable position, just reaching for the puck. Not a dirty hit at all. Just kind of an awkward play. Kind of looks like a nothing play until he comes down holding his jaw, goes straight to the bench. Love the response, though. Philip Kurashev and Nick Foligno stepping up on Brendan Smith. And props to Brendan Smith. He answered the bell, fought Foligno later. But it's an unfortunate turn for the Blackhawks. If anything, this does make their team significantly worse. And maybe they can tank for that first overall pick again if there's any win you can take from this injury. But yeah, maybe Fishbowl Bedsy makes a return, and he returns a little bit sooner than we think, but prayers up for the number 1 overall pick.
Let me ask you this question. Say he comes back, goes point per game in the remaining games of the season. Does he have a shot at the Calder?
I think if he goes point per game after those 6-7 weeks, I still think he's making an extremely strong case for the Calder. Does definitely depend on how other rookies perform. If someone like Fantilli or Marco Rossi, even Brock Faber, someone like that catches fire, and they make a case for themselves, it could really come down to, who played more games and the production during those games. But for me, if he comes back 6 or 7 weeks and plays like the way he does, I think the Calder is a lock for him.
Yeah, I mean, if he can finish the season with, 50, 55 points at this point, and, just looking at the team that he's played with, I think he has a very strong case of winning it. But it is super unfortunate that it's even gotten to this point where it is in question now, because you only have 1 year at the Calder. And so to have this sort of taken away from you or cut short, it is really unfortunate. Another thing I did want to bring up with this situation is just the questions that reporters ask McDavid about Bedard constantly. Like, it's got to be just so annoying for him, just because they're first overall picks, just because they're both, revolutionary players. It doesn't mean McDavid wants to hear about this kid every single week. And obviously, McDavid's going to be super supportive. He's going to feel bad for the kid now that he's injured. But, like, Bedard doesn't watch Sportsnet and look at McDavid, say, stay motivated, and then start being motivated. Bedard's going to be motivated no matter what. So I don't think it's necessary to keep bringing him up. I would think it's, fair question to ask if, say Bedard still had his season going and, maybe McDavid was in the off season or whatever. But McDavid's got his own season to worry about. He's fighting for a wild card spot at this point. The last thing he needs to worry about is other players or other teams for that matter. They got some teams to catch up on. It's just, I just find it so, unnecessary when reporters ask that question.
No, I totally agree. It's absolutely ridiculous. And, like you said, Bedard's not watching Sportsnet. He's not watching McDavid say, like, get after it, stay after it. And if McDavid wanted a message to get to Bedard, he would probably just text him. They definitely have each other's phone numbers. They've known each other for a few years through the BioSteel camp that they were at together. But yeah, like the reporters asking Bedard questions to McDavid, it's just really useless. It probably gets so repetitive for McDavid, and props to him for staying professional and being able to kind of take that from the media. So just moving on here, the World Junior Championships that ended last week. USA over Sweden. Kenny, you called it. Touched on it a bit earlier with Cutter Gauthier, the 12 points in 7 games. But what did you think about USA's tournament and Sweden's tournament as a whole?
Props to both teams for making it that far and doing so well in the tournament. Either of those teams could have gone home with gold. Honestly, like, it was so close, the matchup. Looking at the game, looking at the score, it wasn't as close, but going into it, a lot of people didn't really know who was going to come out with the victory. But the U.S. team, like I said, they were just stacked going into it. A lot of returning players, guys like Gauthier, guys like McGroarty, even surprises like Isaac Howard, like the guy who's going to get drafted this year, Zeev Guillaume. Just real surprises coming out of that roster. Obviously, again, mentioned a couple weeks ago, didn't bring Yzerman. Looks like it didn't really need him at this point, but good for them. U.S. finishes first, Sweden second, and Czechia coming with third place. Caden, what do you think of that top three?
Oof. Really great comeback from Czechia. They had a really solid tournament. And Finland on the other side, that's got to be heartbreak. You start the tournament off extremely slow. You're panicking. Maybe you won't even medal. You're thinking about that. You turn it around with your last 2 group stage games and you win the quarters, lose in the semis, and you have a 5-2 lead in the bronze medal game, and it slips away. Absolute heartbreak for Finland. Hopefully they can bounce back, but this as a whole, not a great look for Finland hockey. But on the other side, you see a more developing hockey country, Czechia. They've been getting better every year. A bronze medal this year is a huge win. They'll be looking to carry it into next year's World Juniors.
Yeah, I love seeing these smaller teams get better and better. Czechia, Slovakia, Germany. They're just producing these young stars, and it's making the tournament even more competitive. Russia's not in right now. They would obviously add to that competitiveness, but a lot of these smaller country teams, they're doing really well, and it's pushing these top teams. It's pushing Finland to 4th, and it's pushing Canada to 5th place. Caden, you called it. You did mention that you wouldn't be surprised if they did not get a medal. What did you think of Canada's performance?
When I said that last episode, I was more thinking they would lose in the bronze medal game. So the quarterfinal loss is a big shock to me for Canada. You look at the team on paper, you can kind of see it coming when you compare it to this year's teams and past Canada teams. It's a tough tournament for Canada. You're going to have some down years. You can't be top of the world every year. But they just really, in that quarterfinal game, they just couldn't hit the net with their shots. Just poor play. They kind of beat themselves a bit. Did not deserve to medal this year, but hopefully they can bounce back next year.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Not the strongest roster that they put out, but you would expect at least a bronze medal appearance, and then hopefully take home 3rd place. But to not even get that far, to get shocked in the quarterfinals against a team who you really should beat. Obviously, they had a very unfortunate bounce in the last 11 seconds of the game, and kudos to Czechia for taking advantage of that and taking home the victory in that game. But it's tough for Canada, and they had a lot of NHL caliber players in that roster who could not perform, had lackluster performances, and it's going to be a tough pill to swallow for sure.
Yeah, like you look at the roster, there was a lot to be excited about. Captain Fraser Minton had some NHL experience this year. Matthew Poitras from the Boston Bruins getting loaned. There was hope with this Canada squad, and the expectation in that dressing room was to win gold. So, like you said, tough pill to swallow. Got to bounce back next year as it moves back to North American ice. We touched on it earlier. We're going to go back a bit. In light of the William Nylander extension, Kenny, let's talk about some potential UFA and RFAs this upcoming offseason and what kind of contracts they get. Take it away. We'll start with Sam Reinhart.
Great season so far, really sort of carrying that, offensive production on the Florida Panthers squad with, guys like Matthew Tkachuk not really producing. Scoring a lot of goals, doing really well with Alex Barkov. Just with, the logistics of the cap, we don't think that he stays. We think that he does walk in free agency, and with free agency comes, obviously, a little more money than what you would get if you re-signed. So we do think he goes for the full 7 years out of free agency, and we think it's in the $8 to $9 million range. Like most players in free agency, it's not really, he's not really an $8 to $9 million player, but, due to other contracts in the league, due to comparison, he can fetch, north of $8 million for sure.
Yeah, contract year again, similar to William Nylander, having a huge year as his contract is expiring. Maybe that Florida tax, the no state tax, could make him stay. He could fetch around that. And with the cap going up, he may even get more. Who knows? Moving on to Elias Pettersson, the biggest RFA this offseason. We think he stays. He wants to win. That's what Vancouver's doing right now. Don't really see any reason for him to leave. There are kind of rumors about him wanting to go to Chicago. Not really looking into that too much. But yeah, Elias Pettersson, we think the Canucks give him the full 8 years, and we see him getting as low as $11 million, but could definitely go higher, considering what William Nylander just got, 11.5. Kenny, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, as the player and agent sort of side of it, you can look at, William Nylander and ask for, more than that money. But then also, the team can say, like, look at David Pastrnak. He's a very good, 100-point player, and he makes less than William Nylander. So there's, there's obviously going to be some negotiating in there. We're going to stay realistic here. It's going to be, high 11 million, close to $12 million contract.
Next up on the list, Steven Stamkos, one of Kenny's favorite players for his favorite team, so I'll let him take this one away. How much is he getting this offseason?
Yeah, he's going to stay. You just can't really sort of do a franchise legend like that. It could go either way. He could go for the shorter, term route and then go for higher money. So maybe around like 2 years at $6 to $7 million, or he could go for, term for guaranteed money and go for 4 to 5 years at around $5 million. I think both would work out for the Lightning. They're obviously in win now mode. They don't really need to have excess cap space laying around. And I think, hopefully, the sooner the better they get this thing done. But I think around, the off-season time, they'll sign him up. Next guy on the list, we do have a guy who's had a couple rumors come out recently, Jake Gensel. Caden, what do you think happens to him?
We do see him getting traded by the deadline here, and we also do see him re-signing with the new team. Don't really have any teams in mind, but we do see him getting the full 8 years in the ballpark of 8 to 9 million. Been a very solid player. There is an argument that he's kind of a product of Sidney Crosby, but standalone value, we ballpark at 8 to 9 million.
Similar money to, Sam Reinhart. And obviously, the Pittsburgh Penguins would like to keep him, but, where they are sitting in the standings and just how inconsistent they've been, it just makes more sense to sort of flip him for maybe younger, NHL roster pieces. But we'll see what happens. Next guy up, we do have an RFA out of Vancouver, Philip Roenick.
Having a great year, acquired last year at the deadline. See him getting 6 years. He is an RFA. He's having a great year. Might have to overpay him a bit to get him to stay, but we ballpark it 7 to 8 million. Myers is coming off the books at 6 million. We think he can take that money plus a bit more, but Philip Roenick going to capitalize on a great year and get a big payday.
Taking advantage of the contract year, and like you said, Myers is coming off the books, so might as well shift that money over to Roenick. Going to the next guy on the list, Marty Necas. Still young, obviously not the greatest season compared to his season last year, but we do have him going with a bridge deal. As he is an RFA with Carolina, he will stick around, going for around 3 years for around $6 million. We think that is reasonable, and we think, they're in a win now mode. Just like Tampa, they're not going to want excess cap laying around, so we do think he'll stay around with Carolina.
Giving himself a bridge deal, kind of giving him a few more years to develop and prove that he's worth more. Next player on the list, we have Carter Hart, the first goalie on this list. Tough to ballpark goalies, but Kenny, how much do you think Carter Hart can get?
Still young, still an RFA, so the team does have some control there. Hasn't panned out to be what he was expected to be. A couple years ago, you would think, his next contract would be in the $8 to $9 million range, something like that. But we do see him going, 5 years, maybe $5 to $6 million, just because, he has been inconsistent. He hasn't, given the numbers that most people would expect out of him. So we do think, both teams will come close at that number and sort of come together for that. We're going to go with another RFA, Jeremy Swayman out of Boston. Caden, what do you think happens with him, and what do you think happens with Allmark?
Yeah, can see a couple different scenarios unfolding out there in Boston, but I do think one of them's got to go. And some people may say, Jeremy Swayman's on his way out, a little easier to trade, to move than the older Allmark, but I do think he stays. And we give him a 6x6. He is an RFA. Allmark does only have 1 year left on his contract after this season. So I think they rock with the tandem this year, maybe next, but don't be surprised if Allmark is on the way out next year. They may just let him walk, but Jeremy Swayman is their goalie of the future, so I do believe they sign him to this 6x6.
Yeah, similar to Roenick, sort of just give him Allmark's money. And as much as Boston fans hate it, and as much as, NHL fans hate it, they're obviously a really close duo, really close tandem, but one of them's gonna have to leave just to make room, just because you can't be paying two goalies, each $6 million. You gotta, direct that towards another position. But that wraps up our contracts. Let us know what you guys think. Let us know if we're way off or if you agree with us. But with that, we're gonna move on to trivia.
Yeah, so like you said, on to trivia. I'll be going first. Kenny, I have just a career path for you. Not currently active, 5 teams. Started his career with the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Vancouver Canucks, over to the Calgary Flames, the Carolina Hurricanes, and wrapped up his career with the St. Louis Blues. His last season in the NHL was actually last season.
Just no one comes to mind right now. In Toronto, Vancouver, just Luke Shen, first thing that pops in my mind. To Calgary.
I would say your best chance is Leafs and Canucks. He's born in 93, so he's not super old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was pretty young then.
Yeah.
93.
Drafted in 2011.
Kind of stumped here. I'm going to rule out goalies. So, 2 names popped in my head. Brendan Leipzig, but he played for Washington. The second one was, my answer here is Josh Levo.
Josh Levo is correct. There you go. Worked it out, got through it, pulled it out of the bag. Good shout.
Thank you. We'll go with your career path here. Still active. This could either be a tricky one or you'll get it in a couple of seconds.
Sure.
But we'll go right away here with the Boston Bruins, the Calgary Flames, the Carolina Hurricanes, now with the New Jersey Devils.
Bruins Devils kind of makes me think Eric Holla played for the Golden Knights and like the Minnesota Wild, not Eric Holla. It looks really familiar, but I can't quite put it together right now.
I was just hoping you weren't going to get it in the first 10 seconds.
We got it.
We got that, yeah.
So,
we can clip it, huh?
So, got the answer here, I believe.
Okay.
You actually don't really think of this guy, really. You kind of got to know what kind of happened around the early points of his career. But we're going to lock in Dougie Hamilton.
That is correct. That's a good shout. Didn't take very long at all. You got that pretty quick.
That was a good one. You kind of forget, the Flames and even the Bruins sometimes. So sometimes can't quite put it together, but got it tonight. All right, Kenny, for your final trivia question of the night. Going a little different here. It's going to be, can you name the top 10 point scorers for your Tampa Bay Lightning in the year 2017-2018? Top 10, 3 lives. Let's hear it.
We'll go with Nikita Kucherov.
In the 1.
Tyler Johnson.
Tyler Johnson is correct in the 6. Kind of shooting a niche one early, but
I'm trying to think if this is the year Stamkos is injured or not, and I feel like that would be the year you would pick. No, they did, but he didn't play. Okay, wait, sorry. Okay, Andre Palat.
Andre Palat in the 10.
Okay, this is not going the right way I thought. Victor Hedman.
Victor Hedman is in the 5.
Valtteri Filppula.
Valtteri Filppula is incorrect.
I'll go with Alex Killorn.
Alex Killorn in the 7.
This might be stupid. I'll go Jonathan Drouin.
Jonathan Drouin is incorrect.
Yeah. Okay. Did Stamkos play? Who made the finals? Washington.
Yeah, that's
He
Washington.
played. Steven Stamkos.
Steven Stamkos in the 2. There you go.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Braden Point.
Braden Point in the 3. There you go. In his age 21 year.
The Sergachev.
Mikhail Sergachev in the 9.
I'm gonna go with JT Miller.
JT Miller is incorrect. He only played 19 games in this year. He was
So that was the year he traded in.
yes, 12th on the year. It's 12th on the board in points with 18. You were looking for Yanni Gord in the 4, and then in the 8 you were looking for Vladislav Nemesnikov.
I'm so ashamed. I'm actually so embarrassed. Gord, I probably wouldn't have gotten Nemesnikov. I was thinking of, but it was between him or Miller,
Yeah.
because they're trading for each other.
A little slow on the Braden Point there, and a little hesitant on Stammer, but
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Slow on points, slow on Sergachev, Stamkos. We're gonna do one that you have done in the past. It's just 3 players that share a common teammate. This one player has played with Dylan Larkin, Elias Pettersson, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
off the bat, we're thinking of this guy. Not sure if it's the guy you're thinking of, but I believe he's played for all 3 of these teams. We're gonna go Alex Chason.
I mean, that's probably right. That's not who I was thinking of. I mean, yeah, it's right. That's not who I was thinking of. I don't know. Does that count? Is that a thing? Yeah, I'll isolate it and I'll give a 4th player that they played with.
Sure.
That would distinguish it from Alex Chason. Okay, you want me to do a quick recap? So
Sure.
Caden got a player. Caden guessed Alex Chason, which is right, but it wasn't the player I was thinking of, so we're going to add a 4th player. He has played with Blake Wheeler.
So give me a couple guys, 3 guys who have only played on one team. I'm thinking of Ryan Spooner. It might have been before Pettersson's time, so we will hold off. A guy like Tyler Mott? No, not Tyler Mott. You got a guy like Oli Levy?
We need to talk about one episode. We need to talk about that because you were so adamant on him becoming an all-star. So we're bringing that back up.
No,
Don't
don't do it. Don't do it. I think I got it. Kind of forgot this guy was still in the league, but just thinking about those teams you said, Winnipeg, Detroit, Vancouver, Edmonton, finally put it together. Give me Sam Gagner.
I can give you Sam Gagner.
Let's
There
go.
you go.
There we go.
Those basically 2 for 2 or 2 for 1.
That was a good one. Sam Gagner, a bit of a shout. Kind of having a little resurgence to his career. Good to see.
Yeah, guys, that about wraps it up for us in episode 14 for you guys. Let us know what you guys think. Let us know what you guys would like to see, whether you like the stuff that you're currently seeing, whether you want more of it or whether you want something different. Just let us know.
It's a lot of fun, guys. Kenny and I love going back and forth, kind of talking about hockey, sharing it with you guys. But yeah, let us know what you guys like to see, and we'll definitely find a way to work it in.
Come up with an episode for you guys shortly in a week or so, but until then, take care.
But I don't be getting my flowers. You really thought she would be sweet. It's a whole nother level of sour.